Hello everyone and welcome to the stories from the Stradling Collection. I had an amazing conversation with David Beech, who is one of our curators here and who knew Ken from quite an early age. So this has been a really interesting conversation and David was very fortunate to give us the time to talk to him. So thank you, David, and I hope you enjoy.
I retired 11 years ago now. Yeah, so I was 68 when I retired. I was sort of wondering what to do with myself, and that's when I bumped into Ken. And I realised that what I really wanted to do was carry on teaching, and this gave me this opportunity.
Yeah, I mean that leads me directly to how did you know Ken? And I guess when you first met him was a bit like later on, but you said that there were like four big moments. Was that the first big moment when you met him when you retired, or when you were
a boy? Oh. Yeah, and this is where I think we don't tell this story properly. That after the war, everything looked. I don't think it's got it in here, but we've got photographs of what it was like in Bristol.
Guild. But, yeah.
The guild, but half of Park Street was been destroyed in bombs, and was we called it bomb sites as kids. That was our playgrounds, and it's all overgrown by buddleia and brambles. But I used to walk down to the centre, to the library, so once a week with my dad, and always we would stop at the guild because everything was so dull and dark and worn out and just awful and cold.
What year was this?
51, 52. And I think there's still some rationing still going on. Yeah, sweet rationing. And the guild, it was like bright lights and modern stuff. And that really inspired me to be interested in design. Yeah. Because I thought, that's the world I want. I want that future. And I think that's what happened with the Festival of Britain for many people. It kind of got, oh my God, this is what the world could look like. Yeah. Not this kind of broken down, bombed out place. And so Ken was showing us what life could be like, and how design could enhance our lives. So that was the first big moment. Yeah. And I always used to go in the guild, and in fact I still got some things I bought as a child, little postcards of things that they were selling there.
I mean, that's so powerful that, I mean, the guild is very central in Bristol, but it was probably even more central at that period of time when people were trying to look for more colour. Yeah. Like, I couldn't even imagine, like, how it would probably be just so, like, as you were saying, it was a very dull time, and to bring that kind of interior and design that was, I guess, would you say quite revolutionary in that time? Or was it kind of just after the war there was so much more, like, need for that?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was the thing. There was an appetite for new things, but no one could buy them because they were for export. So you could buy utility stuff. Utility got a really bad name because there was no choice. So Ken got this thing where he started buying seconds. Now these were things that wouldn't normally go for export, but because there was some like little flaw in it, so Ken used to buy crates of this stuff and sell it. And I think he used to, next door to the guild was the building had been bombed, and there was a bit of a sort of wasteland. And I think he used to set up like a table with these crates, and people would queue right down to College Green because they'd heard that Ken's got another crate. So
he was really trying to bring colour into people's lives.
Yeah. And he was going out to a place in the 50s, going to Scandinavia and finding all this wonderful glass. Is it Orifors, that people like that, these studios and companies that are making glass in Sweden and Denmark and places. They love Ken because they used to say, no one in England is buying our stuff. And so Ken was a real pilot, going to Europe and finding these lovely things and bringing them back to this country to sell.
And he definitely saw a vision in that what other people didn't see.
Yeah, and he went to Copenhagen and he said then, I saw the future in Copenhagen. He said, you had these pedestrianised areas, you have shops selling the most beautiful things, and a museum of modern art, and things like that. And so, he was... Early on, you see, when Ken was a schoolboy in Bristol Grammar, he had been very influenced by his head teacher, a man called Barton, who wrote books and did radio broadcasts promoting modern art and design. And so Ken, was influenced very much by him. Also influenced by his mother, who loved going to auctions. There's a piece that he bought when he was 16 at auction.
Ah, okay. What did it look like?
It was a piece of Elton, a bit like that.
Oh, like a gold kind of vase, was it?
Yeah. He had this vision of, it'd been influenced, and that modern design is going to enhance our lives and give us a better life, build a new world. Well, like the Bauhaus vision.
Yeah.
And coupled with a canny kind of... he's a very good businessman, very successful one. Also in the war, he never went abroad to fight or anything like that. And one of the reasons I think this is true, his commanding officer was very into sport and very competitive about sports. And Ken was a good runner, so no way was he going to let his good runner go off and get shot. To keep him safe.
Just for the sake of the sport.
So he came back from the war with this kind of vision of design, a good business sense, and also his love of a bargain, that idea of auctions. And he just lived for auctions.
Yeah.
And to get what he wanted at the price he wanted to spend, that was his joy.
Yeah.
He loved outwitting other buyers and things like that. So anyway, and when he came back, he went. The guild was already established, not because I was established in 1906 or something like that. He walked in and said, "I think you should employ me." So he was quite confident in himself as a kind of a buyer, shop worker, and obviously took over eventually and became co-owner and chief executive or whatever, and it was his baby really. So that was the sort of first encounter with who Ken was. And it must have been those early experiences that led me to wanting to be an artist and designer. And so I always recognised him. He was very, very dapper, as they call it, very beautifully turned out. Always had a very smart trilby hat, and very well dressed, immensely charming. Very courteous. He spoke beautifully, but he was very sharp as well. He gave offers to 3 students to do his shop fronts, windows, displays, and one of them, Jeremy Cornwall, he eventually gave some space in this building for his workshop, and Jeremy became quite a successful cabinet maker, but also up until the shop closed was doing all the window displays there. And Ken said, quality throughout, that's what counts. And that was very much Ken.
Yeah.
When his shop was beautiful, it was showing people what it'd be like in their homes.
Not kind of display, like the plates and the fork, and how it would kind of be.
Yeah, and the table and the chairs and the tablecloths, and then maybe pictures on the wall, and it was it's what IKEA now do. When you go into IKEA, it's all set out as little rooms, isn't it? It didn't always be like that.
So you can really picture it.
Yeah. And so he was great at doing that. So I think that was very innovative, and again that promotion of good design. This is what it could be like. You could have this, and as well as being a good businessman.
Yeah.
Because
I mean that is being a good businessman.
Because you say, I like that, and I'll have those as well. So.
So I think being the good businessman that he was, he was able to network and try and get a little bit of ideas from different people.
And this is where that thing about quality comes in.
Yeah.
Because he started doing things in with the shop, expanding it into what became 3 shops in the end that he knocked together to make one. And he wanted a cafe. And he got in to run the cafe, one of the top chefs in the country, the guy who set up and ran what was called the Hole in the Wall in Bath, which was, because the restaurant, it was, eating in England was not very good, a good idea. And to have really good quality French cooking. So he got him in to set up the restaurant, and it was terrific. The food was gorgeous, and he had a nice little garden built out, and with a tree, and it would just be packed out. People go there, and he did the same at Dartington when he became chair of the trustees there. I think that's what his job was. And the SS Great Britain, always getting the best people in, and making sure that everything was of the best quality.
It was a customer experience, I think, at the end of the day. It's
that's right, yeah.
Making someone walk in and want to stay in that place rather than see it as a kind of transactional thing. And, giving them the best quality food, and then, showing the kind of cutlery and the pieces that he was selling, and seeing how they could display in their home. It was all centered around the people who walked in.
That's it.
I think that does encapsulate, how he was as a person to his visitors and the people that met him, as a customer. But was there a moment that you shared with Ken that kind of captured who he was as a person? There could be multiple moments.
Well, when I set up a workshop and we were going to make furniture, that was our range that we would make, and there was an ideal home exhibition, and we had a stand, and we had all our furniture out and lit it and everything, and Ken came along, and that's when he got to know us as furniture designers. And he liked what we were doing. I'm not sure how much he ever sold for us, but I know, like this table here, him saying, "So," he said, "how much do you want for that then?" And I said, "Well, £25." And he said, "Oh, well, I'd have to sell it for 70 or something." What? He said, "Well, that's my markup." And well, you'll never sell it for that now. And he said, yeah. So he kind of started getting us to think more like business people as well. And that's what we did in the end. Or we decided we couldn't sell it through shops, So that's why we made it all flat pack.
Oh, okay.
So that we could sell it directly from the workshop.
Oh, okay.
So people could just come along, pick it up.
And just take it, yeah.
But the 70s was economically a disastrous time to set up a business. Everything was against us on that. But and Ken, he was very adaptable as well. I wouldn't say he had a vision like we had of like a sort of Bauhaus type vision, very purist attitude towards what design was. If you look around here, they're quite kind of eccentric pieces there, aren't there?
Yeah.
And some that are very sculptural pieces.
I mean, now that you're looking at the collection, I mean, we're around so many pieces that he has bought. Was there, a favourite that's been exhibited here? Was there a favourite exhibition?
Oh, I like nearly all of it. And what it was becoming familiar with them, the pieces, and gradually, instead of this kind of great clutter, I started seeing individual pieces within it. And when I started doing workshops here with students and working with kids and things like that, I'd always ask them to find something they liked, and they'd bring it to the table and they'd put it there, and we'd talk about it. And they'd start telling me things about it. I go, oh yeah, that's right. I hadn't seen it like that before. So I was learning enormously about things and learning to see and really look at objects, which I thought I was very good at.
But I think
actually,
once you
actually
judgmental. Put it in front and see it in isolation, you can see a lot more. And if you spend more time on just one thing, then you're forced to kind of,
that's right,
actually see what's going on.
Yeah, but it was that sharing of opinion that changed me a lot as a teacher, and that's when I started encourage that we would lend objects out, and Ken was all for that. He loved it. He loved that idea that his collection was becoming more accessible, because really it was, when I joined, it was like his private club. It was his second home. He would sit there at his desk and with his hot chocolate and cake and whatever, and read, and he used to read the Daily Mail.
No comment.
You can't read that. And when he was dying, I said, so Ken, should we put the obituary in the Daily Mail then?
Oh.
So anyway, he provided me with a vision of the future, which became my career as a child. He supported me setting up my business and workshop as a designer maker, and he gave me this opportunity to become a better teacher, because I was here, I was free of exams, assessments, assessment criteria with the work I was doing. It was just allowing people, children, to talk about things that they liked and why they liked it. And
without feeling like they're going to get marked or graded against what they say.
Or they were saying something wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I loved. You go into a school, do you see anything like that? You go into the university, you won't see anything like that. Several times I get a delivery at home of a case of really good wine from Avery's. Ken had just sent to me. And a couple of times he took me and my wife out for a great slap-up meal. He loved food and drink. So someone, I think Ollie Kent said that Ken could have written a gourmet's guide to the restaurants in the southwest.
Yeah.
And Ken would have known them all and what they were like. And he did love a nice lunch. And we were talking about lunches one day, and he said, "Oh yes," he said, "I do like He said, I think we were drinking a glass of wine at the time as well. I do like a sweet wine, a dessert wine at the end of the meal. And one slowly slides under the table." And Julia, who worked here, she knew Ken very well, and she used to rap his knuckles like, "No, Ken, you can't have another glass."
How would you want Ken to be remembered by, visitors or people who are listening? How would you want people to remember him? Because obviously when people come in, this is maybe their first time knowing about Ken.
Yeah.
And what kind of impression do you want them to have of him? I mean, you've talked about him being a businessman and, being very creative and innovative and bringing in this new kind of art from different countries. But how would you want someone to remember him?
Yeah. Well, I think as that person with that keen eye for what is interesting and well made. What he says about it, all this stuff is what links them all is design. That's how he used to say it. You see, when people now, we all got modern stuff, haven't we? In most homes you walk into now and just see it, it's modern. Built-in kitchens. I mean, back then we were doing pioneering work in built-in kitchens. Well, we're used to that modern world. And it wasn't there, you had 5 years of war followed by a really austere period of deprivation and shortages. So to see a modern world was quite visionary, really, and quite unusual. And Ken he made that very attractive and was a great advocate for good design. He also supported. He didn't do a lot of teaching. I mean, he used to go in and give talks to art schools and things like that. But I don't think he didn't teach design, and he never made anything in his life, as far as I know, and didn't design anything. But he had this eye for it, and then he could pick out who was good at it and get them to work for him. Because a lot of my friends at that time, they were also making, had workshops and trying to make a living. And so they've got stories to tell about how they were rejected by Ken. And he could be instant like that. No.
Really?
No messing around, I don't want it.
Very picky with the people that he was going to work with.
Yeah. And a friend of mine, he made this table, and beautifully made. And he parked outside the guild and undid all the ropes and took it off onto the pavement and got Ken to come out and have a look at it. And Ken said, "I'm not having that." He said, "If I put that in the window, it would walk out the door in a week," because he thought the top was too thin and that would warp, and by golly it did, because another shop in Bath bought it and put it in the window and it warped like mad. But they loved it and used it as a surface to display things. So he was very shy. He knew exactly what he wanted and what was going to sell. But that was the other thing about Ken. If he liked what you were doing, he took the risk and he would buy it off you, and then it was up to him then to sell it if you wanted to make a profit. That never happens now. Shops will take it, and if they can sell it, fine. But if they don't, you give it back, you don't make any money. What it meant for someone like me was he was brilliant at paying straight away. As soon as I'd done a job in the guild, he'd pay me that day. And cash flow is the most difficult thing for unbusinesslike people like myself to keep a hold of. Mm-hmm. And so many young makers have benefited from that. Kate Malone, who was a very famous ceramicist, we've got some of her work in the collection, and she was a student in Bristol doing ceramics, and she used to say the guild was paradise and Ken was God. That's how much she thought of him. And the same, when I was a student, if you wanted to see modern furniture, that was really, when I say modern furniture, I mean like Bauhaus inspired furniture. only the guilds was selling it.
Mm-hmm.
So you go and see a Charles Eames chair or something like that, or a Mies van der Rohe chair.
Mm.
They were being sold in the guild.
I mean, often when you find like people who have been in, you know, businesses for so long, is that they will grow to have this idea of what they want, and sometimes for most people it will just stick and they won't change with the times.
Yeah.
But from, you know, what you're saying, it sounds like he was very much in tune with what younger people were doing and what young artists were producing, and were willing to support that, you know, if you thought it was going to be successful, which is, you know, I think a big difference between someone who is extremely successful and not very successful, you know, because a lot of people can have a very fixated idea of what they want and not want to be willing to, you know, look into something that might be different or new or unique. I think that's something that is definitely appreciated and something that you can see in this collection. Has there been anything you've seen, you know, out and about that probably would have caught Ken's eye? I think he would have probably stopped to look at that. Has there been anything that you've seen so far?
One thing, that chair that you...
Yeah.
He would have loved that. He would have... He always wanted a Marcel Breuer plywood chair, and they were always looking out for it, because he and the former curator Chris Yeo, have you heard of? Yeah. Now that's the other thing that we're missing is Ken here, because he used to spend money on buying new stuff for the collection, and I think we haven't bought anything since he died. I don't think. Oh, except a piece of ceramics that because we were exhibiting the work, and we got some money lent to us or given to us to buy that work as well. So, but Ken was very, we'll buy that, and some of it was awful, like that elephant. But there's other things that. Like there's an Eric Ravilius bowl that's very nice upstairs. He always used to say, do you know what I think about most? He said, it's not about the things I bought. He said, it's the things I didn't buy that gets me sometimes. And so and if you go to his house, he would, and you said, oh, what about that piece, Ken? And he'd tell you how much he paid for it, and everything, you know. And if he managed to get it against a lot of competition, but for the price he wanted to pay, he was victorious.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about this.
And so in his last... Yes, I can't really answer that question satisfactorily, because he had such wide taste, and I mean, I used to buy things, oh my God, that's horrible. And then other things, obviously...
It was very sporadic then. There was kind of no rhyme or reason with what he kind of...
Yeah, it was a bit random.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, that's its strength and also its weakness, because it's very difficult to really tell. Yeah,
that's great. I think we've talked so much about kind of not only how he was just, you know, a good businessman, how he was in the guild, he was trying to create some colour and vision for people who couldn't see that at that point in time, but also continue that into this collection, and see how it's very hard to balance someone who can have a keen eye for something, who is always looking for the next thing from younger artists and from a younger generation, while also kind of not having really any theme to what he was buying, and to being open, I think, is the biggest thing that I've, you know, taken from this, is that he was so open to a lot of different art, and, you know, seeing a vision in kind of domestic design is quite, you know, revolutionary, because, you know, not many people would have seen that as something that they could expand on and, you know, be creative with.
And it's taking the risk as well. Now, Croft and Gain, you'll see upstairs, commissioned Breuer to design a pavilion, and there's some photographs and the model of the pavilion upstairs, and that was put up in Ashton Court for a big agricultural show. And they thought, about for 3 weeks, that's all, but they would set it up like someone's home, and all modern furniture. They didn't sell a single thing. All that investment, and sold nothing. So, and Ken would know about that experience. At the Festival of Britain in 1951, one of the exhibits was two domestic rooms. One was sort of traditional that you normally typically find in a person's home, and the other was designed by Misha Black and Margaret Casson, and to show what a modern home. And visitors were encouraged to write their responses, and of course there was an awful lot of negative response to the modern stuff. Yuck! We prefer the traditional cosy, 3-piece upholstered sofa round the fire and with a radio and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of rejection of modern stuff. And so it was a risky business for a businessman to take, to put these new strange things in front of the public. And sometimes exhibitions that he had for particular artists didn't sell. I won't say which one. I remember when we had a lot of building work done down here at one point, especially in that room in there, where we had a new ceiling put in, and we had to pack up everything in boxes like this, and there were about 60 or 70 of these big boxes, and we stored them at Ken's cellar, and then brought them back once the building work had been done. And we opened that door was open, and we set Ken up in a chair and got out each object so he could see it again, because he was so immobile in those days, so he'd forgotten what he had, more or less. And he would comment on them and say, "Oh, he said, I look at this, I think, did I buy that?" And then other things, he would kind of be very gleeful to see it again, and things like that. So it wasn't always successful at selling things, but he always took that risk. And I think that's one of the things I admired him for, was that, and his relationship with the makers. That they very often became his friends, and also and they loved him because he was nurturing them, and looking after them as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time, David.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like we've all, as the listeners and me, learnt so much about who he was and how he was to you and your relationship with him, and how he was so unique in what he did and why he was unique, and how he was able to just collect all of these things and have a certain eye for it that not many other people could have. Thank you so much for your time.
That's right. Yeah.
The Stradling Collection hosts a combination of workshops, tours and exhibitions showcasing Ken's collection. We are a small charity based in Bristol, open to the public and accepting of donations and sponsorships. More details can be found on our website included in the episode description. Thanks for listening.